What if I told you that something older than our sun, older than Earth, and older than anything we've ever encountered, is speeding away from us at a staggering 60 kilometers per second? An object that used Jupiter as a slingshot and is now racing out of our solar system, and yet every space agency on Earth has gone completely silent. It might sound unbelievable, but stay with me, because what I'm about to share with you is not only real, it's mind-blowing. This object, named 3 Atlas, is hurtling through space at 60,000 meters per second, and what's even stranger than the speed at which it's moving is the silence surrounding it. This isn't just some random cosmic visitor, it's something much more profound, something that aerospace engineers are scratching their heads over. 3 days ago, this interstellar traveler completed an act that has engineers questioning everything they thought they knew about the nature of objects in our solar system. It threaded the gravitational boundary of Jupiter, the largest planet in our solar system, with a precision so exact. Calling it a coincidence would be a complete disregard for mathematics itself. Now, I've been following space science for years, and I've seen discoveries come and go, but what's happening right now with 3 Atlas is different. The data is already out there. The measurements have been confirmed. Yet, the response from the scientific community has been nothing short of shocking total silence. No discussions, no press conferences, no questions asked. The silence has become so deafening that it speaks volumes in itself. So, let me show you exactly what was measured. Let me walk you through the numbers that, for some reason, no one seems to want to discuss. By the end of this video, you'll understand why the most consequential question in human history may already be sitting quietly in classified files, waiting for someone with the authority to say it out loud. Let's begin with where 3 Atlas is right now. As of today, this object is moving outward from Jupiter faster than anything we've ever tracked in our solar system. The glowing coma that made it visible for months, the gas and dust clouds surrounding it, is now collapsing. The outgassing is slowing down. Whatever this object showed us during its inner solar system transit, it's now going dark. And that, my friends, is where the mystery begins. Here's something that no one in mainstream media has framed correctly. 3 Atlas was bright, active, and observable for the precise duration of its journey through the inner solar system. It lit up when it needed to be visible during its inbound leg, and as it neared Jupiter, it became a beacon in the night sky. But now that it's past that point, it's fading into the shadows, just as it should. Think about this for a second. If you were designing a probe to enter a solar system unnoticed, but still visible enough to be detected during its transit, wouldn't you design it exactly like this? The object becomes visible as it approaches, glowing with sublimation-driven brightness during its inbound trajectory. At perihelion, the closest point to the Sun, it shows maximum activity, enough to be detectable by telescopes. And then, just as the inbound transit finishes, the coma collapses and it starts to fade into darkness. As it exits the solar system, it goes dark for the long cruise home. This, my friends, is not how random ice and rock behave. This follows the profile of a mission designed with intent. Now, let's dive deeper into what makes this discovery even more mind-bending. Just over a week ago, a groundbreaking study based on data from the James Webb Space Telescope was released. If you've been following space news, you know that the Webb telescope is one of the most advanced instruments we have for peering into the depths of the universe. And the findings? They should have made headlines around the world. Instead, they quietly slipped under the radar. The object we're discussing, 3 Atlas, is not just a random comet or asteroid. It's 10 to 12 billion years old. Yes, you heard that right. 10 billion years old. Let that sink in for a moment. The universe itself is only 13.8 billion years old. Our solar system, with all its planets, moons, and the Sun formed just 4.6 billion years ago. But 3 Atlas, this object from deep space, predates everything we know. It was already ancient when the first particles of our Sun began to form. It's traveled for a staggering 10 billion years through the void between stars, through regions of the galaxy that have never been mapped by human telescopes. And then, just when our technology became advanced enough to detect it, it arrived. Here's the most striking part. The probability of its arrival timing being a complete accident, aligning perfectly with a 6-0-year window in human history when we could actually detect it, is so astronomically small that it's hard to even comprehend. It's as if this object showed up specifically when we had the instruments to observe it. This is where the mystery thickens. The chemical analysis from the James Webb Space Telescope confirmed its age using what scientists call a chemical birth certificate. The ratio of deuterium to hydrogen is higher than anything we've ever measured in our solar system. The carbon isotope ratios are completely outside the range of any known solar system body. These aren't vague readings that can be interpreted in multiple ways. These are precise numbers that leave no room for doubt. 3 Atlas was formed in a cold, metal-poor environment in the early Milky Way, a place that no longer looks the way it did when this object was born. And that brings us to a rather uncomfortable question. Could this object have been built rather than just formed naturally? Now, I know that word built may sound strange, but stick with me. Based on everything we're seeing, the idea that this object was created with intent, or that it somehow possesses a level of sophistication beyond what we would expect from a natural comet, is something we can't ignore. By the end of this video, you'll see why the possibility of this object being constructed or altered is no longer a fringe theory. It's a real consideration. Now that we understand the object's remarkable age and its potential origins, let's shift our focus to the most intriguing part of its journey, its interaction with Jupiter. On March 16, 2026, 3 Atlas made a near-perfect pass by Jupiter at a distance of 53.6 million kilometers. At first glance, this might seem like a routine celestial encounter, but the details reveal something much more extraordinary. You see, Jupiter's gravitational influence, known as its Hill sphere, extends out to about 53.5 million kilometers. That means when 3 Atlas passed by, it came within a mere 100,000 kilometers of Jupiter's gravitational edge. Now, I know numbers like this can seem abstract, but let's put this into perspective. The entire solar system spans over 5 trillion kilometers. The fact that an object from interstellar space, a random traveler from outside our solar system, was able to thread this narrow gap with such precision is truly mind-boggling. Imagine throwing a coin from New York City and having it land exactly on the rim of a wine glass in Los Angeles. That's the level of precision we're talking about. Why does this matter so much? Because when an object enters the gravitational influence of a planet like Jupiter, its trajectory is altered. In orbital mechanics, this is called a gravity assist or a slingshot. It's a technique used deliberately in space missions to increase the velocity of a spacecraft without using additional fuel. NASA's Voyager 1 and New Horizons both use Jupiter's gravity to boost their speed and send them on their way to distant regions of space. The precision required to pull off such a maneuver is extreme entry angle, velocity, and position all have to be calculated to perfection. But here's where the story gets even stranger. 3 Atlas didn't perform the gravity assist on its inbound leg when it was coming toward the Sunday. It did it on its outbound leg after it had already passed through the solar system. This raises a critical question. If this is a natural object, a comet or asteroid, how did it manage to calculate such an exact trajectory 10 billion years ago that would allow it to make use of Jupiter's gravitational field after it had completed its mission in the inner solar system? This wasn't an accidental interaction, it was intentional. You might be wondering, how could something so precise happen by chance? Well, the numbers don't lie. For an object to enter the solar system, pass through Jupiter's Hill sphere, and exit using the planet's gravity to boost its speed with this much precision, the odds are so low that it borders on statistical impossibility. Either this was an incredible stroke of luck, or something planned it. Now, let's dive deeper into the trajectory of 3 Atlas after its encounter with Jupiter, because that's where things get truly unsettling. After the gravity assist, the path of 3 Atlas was altered significantly, and this is where the real questions begin. The outbound trajectory of this object does not point toward empty space. In fact, when we trace the object's path forward using the same method we've used for centuries, backtracking the trajectory of interstellar objects, it's clear that the path leads to a very specific region of the Milky Way galaxy. This region is not just random space, it's a place where stars formed billions of years ago, a place that could very well be where 3 Atlas originated from, or perhaps where it's heading back to. The mathematics behind this is undeniable. The same method used to trace its inbound path backward toward a region consistent with a 1.0 billion year old formation environment produces a forward trajectory that points toward a specific destination. Now, I want to make it clear that this isn't some wild speculation. It's a calculation based on solid math and physics. However, due to the uncertainty in orbital mechanics at such vast distances, naming a specific destination would be irresponsible. But the direction is there, and it leads to something much more significant than just empty space. Let's break that down. What this means is that 3 Atlas didn't just wander into our solar system by accident. It came here, performed its mission, and left with a calculated trajectory aimed toward a place we haven't even begun to understand fully. This adds another layer to the mystery. If this is a natural object, a comet, or a random interstellar visitor, then the laws of physics must have conspired in such a precise way that it's almost indistinguishable from purpose. But if we look at it from a different angle, it starts to feel like it was always meant to come here on its exact path, with a destination in mind. Why is this important? Because the silence from space agencies after this discovery is deafening. NASA, the European Space Agency, and others who had the data and the capability to analyze the object's trajectory have said almost nothing. There's been no official explanation for why this object is moving the way it is, nor any public acknowledgement of its exact destination. What makes the silence even more intriguing is the fact that we've done this before. We've used Jupiter's gravity to alter the course of space probes, Voyager 1, New Horizons, and others. These missions were intentional, deliberate, and yet here we are, with an object performing a similar maneuver, and the response from the scientific community is silence. The silence isn't just about withholding information, it's about choosing not to acknowledge the implications. The trajectory of 3 Atlas after it performed the gravity assist at Jupiter is something that should have sent shockwaves through the scientific community. Yet, no one is saying a word. That silence in itself is telling us something. As we continue to follow the path of 3 Atlas, we start to notice more disturbing anomalies, things that mainstream coverage has either missed or ignored. Let's take a closer look at the instruments that were observing this object during its journey, particularly the European Space Agency's Jupiter Icy Moons Explorer, or JUICE. This spacecraft, which was on its way to Jupiter, happened to be in range of 3 Atlas when it passed through the outer solar system. It carries a full suite of scientific instruments, spectrometers, cameras, particle detectors, and even a magnetometer designed to measure the environment around objects in space. JUICE did exactly that. It aimed all of its instruments at 3 Atlas. The European Space Agency confirmed this in their statements, yet here's where the story takes a strange turn. After releasing a single image, a black and white snapshot showing the coma and the central condensation of 3 Atlas, they went silent. No follow-up reports, no additional data, no discussion of the findings, not a single mention of what JUICE instruments detected, despite the fact that these instruments are designed specifically to measure the kind of electromagnetic emissions and plasma waves that could have been coming from 3 Atlas. Now, I want you to think about this for a second. These aren't just passive cameras. These are highly sensitive, research-grade detectors designed to study space objects in extreme detail. If JUICE pointed its instruments at 3 Atlas, there's a very real possibility it picked up something that we're not being told about. Yet, there's been no mention of the data. Not in any preprints, not in any research papers, and certainly not in any public communication from the European Space Agency. This isn't a delay. Delays in science produce statements, updates, and occasional leaks on social media. But there's been none of that. Just one photo and a complete silence from the institutions involved. And that silence is starting to feel deliberate. So, why the secrecy? What could JUICE have discovered that they're choosing not to talk about? Perhaps it's data that doesn't fit the narrative. Perhaps it's data that raises more questions than answers. Whatever the reason, the lack of transparency is troubling, especially when you consider that we have the technology to observe and understand these objects in unprecedented detail, yet the most significant findings remain hidden. This is where the story of 3 Atlas takes another twist. We now know that there is a window, a real opportunity to catch this object before it's lost forever. But once again, there's silence. As we reach the final chapter of this unfolding mystery, we're left with one question that continues to loom larger than any other. What is 3 Atlas truly carrying, and where is it headed next? The trajectory we've been discussing leads this object out of our solar system, but its path takes it dangerously close to one of the most intriguing places in our outer solar system, Saturn. Within months, not years, 3 Atlas will pass through the region dominated by Saturn's gravitational influence. And here's where things get even more fascinating. Saturn's moon, Enceladus, is unlike any other moon in the solar system. It's an active world continuously ejecting water vapor, methane, carbon dioxide, and complex organic molecules through geysers at its south pole. These plumes are a signature of the chemical energy beneath the ice shell, possibly driven by hydrothermal chemistry deep below the surface. This is the kind of environment that could harbor life, or at the very least, the building blocks of life as we know it. The Cassini spacecraft confirmed the presence of molecular hydrogen in these plumes, a direct marker of water-rock interaction at depth, a chemical environment we typically associate with life on Earth. 3 Atlas will pass directly through this region, where Enceladus is broadcasting its chemical signature into space. The object will be immersed in this signal without needing to alter its trajectory. It won't need to maneuver. It will simply pass through Saturn's system, collecting whatever is being emitted into space by Enceladus, and then continue on its journey through the cosmos, taking whatever it gathers with it. And here's where the mystery becomes even more intriguing. We have telescopes monitoring this object. We will be watching closely as it moves through this region of the solar system, hoping to detect any changes in the object's behavior. But the real question is, Will it reactivate in any unexpected way as it nears this region? As we await more data, we already know something critical. Whatever is happening with 3 Atlas is not natural. It's not behaving like any comet or asteroid we've observed. The chemistry of its coma, the methane release after perihelion, and the unexplained lateral forces during its inner solar system transit. All of this points towards something far more calculated and sophisticated than a random space rock. And yet, we're still left in the dark. Mainstream science media treats these anomalies as outliers, dismissing the idea that something more deliberate could be at play. But the facts are clear. The data doesn't lie. Here's the final piece of this puzzle. In 1977, a signal was detected by the Big Ear radio telescope, a narrow-band signal that lasted just 72 seconds. The researcher who detected it wrote "Wow" on the printout. For decades, it remained the strongest candidate for an extraterrestrial origin signal. But in 2025, something astonishing happened. Researchers traced the inbound trajectory of 3 Atlas and discovered it had a 9-degree alignment with the origin point of the WOW signal. The probability of this alignment happening by chance? Just 0.6%. What if the WOW signal wasn't from a fixed location but from a moving object? What if it was a pulse, activating at a specific phase of its approach to Earth? What if 3 Atlas was sending us a message, a marker, a signal to let us know it was coming? And the most troubling part? The silence that followed. There's been no press conference, no official explanation, just data and more silence. 3 Atlas is leaving. It's already dark, cold, and far away. We will watch as it passes through Saturn's system, and then we will lose it forever. But what we will have left are the numbers, the papers, and the silence. And that silence is not nothing. It has weight. It has shape. And it's telling us that the story of 3 Atlas isn't over. It's just beginning. And the next piece of data, when it arrives, will challenge everything we think we know about space, science, and maybe even our place in the universe. If you're as captivated by this mystery as I am, don't let this be the end of the story. Click on the next video to continue exploring the astonishing secrets that space still holds. The universe is full of mysteries, and we've only just begun to uncover them.